So I'm at the Chase ATM, and they can integrate Zelle into this window. And what it would say was, you get up to the ATM, and it says Zelle. It says, yes, how do you want it? Under transfer money, it gives you several options. Money coming out of Chase or money coming into Chase. Transfer. Sending money to Chase. Institution. And then it gives you a choice from debit card. And then it says debit card scan or insert. Hit PIN. Enter amount of transfer. And I enter the amount. I'm at Chase. I put in my Bank of America debit card. It says Zelle. And I say transfer money. Transfer money to Chase. I'm already in Chase. It says transfer money to Chase or transfer money from Chase. Because I'm in Chase. Zelle, transfer money from or to Chase. And I say to Chase. It says coming from next. And I hit, and it says from credit card, debit card, because you can get cash advances on credit cards and deposit it in your bank. Or, like I used to be able to do, cash out points on Capital One, turn it into cash, and I could transfer it out if I want it. So I would put, it says Zelle. I enter my Chase, Zelle, transfer to Chase from, and I say debit card. From doesn't need to be an institution, a debit card. Even Bitcoin and Merrill Lynch and Morgan Stanley have debit cards. John Hancock, Signature, we have a debit card for the securities account. At Vanguard, our securities accounts have debit cards, but also our bond funds, you can transfer out 250 at a time. Write a check. We had our bond funds you can write checks on. So all of our bond funds, you could take money out. We wanted a 250 minimum. But that said, we would take smaller redemptions as well. But we didn't tell anyone. We just said 250 minimum. And so you would hit here. I would hit debit card. And then I would scan the Vanguard debit card. Boom. And then it says enter PIN. And I enter PIN. And then it says withdrawal amount. And I enter $200. And I go through the same thing. Instead of printing out money, it Zelles it to the Chase account. And all of a sudden, I see, okay, send money. Yes, just like on the phone, I send the money, and it goes into the Chase account. And there it is, $200 from my Vanguard showing up in my banking account, done with the Chase ATM. And so, whatever Zelle costs, right? But again, you can move money from Merrill Lynch and so on, or money from Chase to other institutions as well. But here it's a Chase dedicated ATM, but it's still the same thing. Zelle, transfer, and instead of to Chase, from Chase, it would say to Chase or from Chase. And I press from Chase, and then it would go debit card, credit card, and so on, because maybe I want to make a credit card payment with my Zelle. and I hit credit card. And then I tap the credit card, I do the PIN, and then it says transfer to, and marked as bill pay. Truly, and it goes in, it recognizes credit card. You're not depositing on a credit card unless it's a what? You can reload a debit card. So it would be under the debit card, but you could reload an American Express prepaid card. So you could reload a prepaid card. And anyone knows, if you're going to foreign countries, lock up your banking account cards, your actual debit cards, and take prepaid cards out with you. It's much safer if you're going to traveling to keep that separate and just reload from your account the prepaid card and let that be lost. And so it bridges the gap. And if you can do it from a Zelle, that helps, but people can steal, but you'd have to set it up so they'd have to see the card, there have to be verifications and so on, but you should be able to reload your card. And I swipe it here, and I take from Chase to American Express debit card, $200, and I go through and I load $200, and then I can go out with a $200 prepaid debit card, and I don't have to use my Chase debit card, and I can keep that secure. So if you lose that, you just lose the American Express thing, and you don't lose your Chase debit card. It's just another way that you can use these prepaid cards. They don't think of them. And you can give it to your college student. Say you have a college student and you want to keep track of their expenses and you don't want to give them a credit card. You can give them a prepaid card and reload it. And if you want it, you can create all the go to PayPal and create accounts for each of your employees and transfer it to their prepaid card. So, like transferring your paycheck to Chime. Well, you can do it to the American Express debit card. And they can say if you send your paycheck to the debit card, you get checking account interest and bonus points. But again, it's just another way to do paperless banking. But again, you can think of that sending your kids, like your elementary school kid. Don't give them a credit card. Give them a debit card, a prepaid debit card. So they lose it. You have the number and everything on the prepaid debit card, and it has protection, and you can stop it, and they can go through its process. But you can give your little kid a prepaid. And so it's another way to use the prepaid system as security for your little ones and everything. They're going on a field trip. And now that we're not really using pennies, you can still use pennies, but it makes you pay with a credit card or a debit card. The penny doesn't go away. The physical penny might went away, but for anything paid in pennies, you have to use a debit card or credit card. If you pay in cash, they round up or round down to make it 5 cents. So it's 55 cents, 65 cents, or so on. But if you want it to be that, you have a choice. So sometimes you give and sometimes you get. So sometimes it's rounding up, sometimes it's rounding down. Depending. Some institutions can set their prices where it's always rounding up, and that would be a problem. The Attorney General would have to see, because then they're getting money that they shouldn't because of a rounding error. But you still get to choose. You can pay with a credit or debit card, and it'll charge you $1.81. Or if you pay with cash, $1.85. But I don't know why they just don't move to cheaper metals for the penny. But if they're going to get rid of it, that's what I would go with. So, again, I'm down here by Whole Foods and across the street Chase. And it's kind of a weird setup. A bank, grocery store, a nightclub, and a strip bar, and then a restaurant. Very eclectic setup. They don't tend to go together. But the only reason they work is because the Whole Foods is in 24 hours. They would kind of clash if the Whole Food, because it's basically a different type of mentality. It's not the right vibe. Truly, it doesn't give you that nightclub vibe. Like you go on Lake Street, there used to be a lot of nightclubs, or you go on Fulton Market and there's a lot of restaurants, and then we used to go to Fulton's, which was on a side street, and the side street was Fulton. And Jen and all of us used to hang out there. It wasn't a dance club, it was a bar lounge. It was a lounge. It was a bar lounge, beautiful patio, and we used to hang out there quite a bit. But it was a very nice place to hang. But also Jen went to all the nightclubs with me as well. She liked them too. Why? Because you can dance. You know, Saturday Night Fever and Saturday Night Live is really about the nightclub scene. And I'll put it on Tumblr, but Michael Jackson, the king of pop, his vision, he blended, truly, him and Billy Ray, was it? I forget the other guy. But two black guys, and they decided to blend disco and rock and roll and create a hybrid. And what did they do? They created a whole revolution because they appealed to rock people and they appealed to all the disco people. And that's why Michael Jackson dances to all this stuff. Whereas if you watch the Jackson 5 and that, they didn't dance. They were a pure band. They didn't really, do a lot of dancing. When Michael Jackson became a solo artist and they decided to create this hybrid, which he did create with the one other guy, they created pop rock. All the dancing. So it wasn't the other four, they didn't have Michael's skills. Michael could sing, Michael could dance, and I think Michael could play an instrument. He was very well-rounded. The others were not. Tito and the others, they were not well-rounded. They were not tenacious like Michael. So, I was a big fan of Michael Jackson. And I still don't believe in the charges. He's eclectic, but I don't believe in the molestation charges. I still think the kid lied. But that was my feeling. I don't know if it ever panned out, but I think it was a bunch of bullshit. So I saw the trial and everything, and I still thought it was a bunch of bullshit. That he wasn't correctly, he was falsely charged. I watched the trial, the testimony, and that, and my feeling back then was that the kid was lying. The whole thing was set him up. Quick way to get millions. He didn't come from a whole history. He was married to Priscilla Presley, and I watched his relationships in that. And I talked to staff at Disney World and many other things about him. And yeah, he was big into animation. He loved animation and all that. But he wasn't a predator. But he could easily be entrapped if somebody set it up right. And people, that's the whole point of the Bible saying sloth. You're supposed to earn what the fuck you get. And that's what you don't understand. All these thieves out here, lying, cheating, thieving motherfuckers, they don't want to earn what they get. And so you raise a whole society because the government feeds them everything, feeds them everything, feeds them everything. It's one thing when you're in an environment like North Korea and you have no fucking opportunity. But that's not good because the government kind of created it that way. It's just like they did in Venezuela when they gave out subsidies. And you don't understand. You don't understand these regimes. Venezuela purposely impoverished their people. He had all those oil resources. He could have brought in outside consulting and things could have boomed that made many other industries. Hugo Chavez didn't want that. He wanted to enslave his people. As you found out, the Democratic Party was the party of slavery. Well, entitlements can become slavery. Me and my partner, David Kudo, he's Japanese. His family's he's third generation American Japanese. But he talks about it, that they used the entitlement program to buy your vote. You don't think the Democrats use the entitlement programs to buy votes? Lyndon B. Johnson knew that when he gave Martin Luther King and went to the office, that he would be setting a legacy of dependency on the Democratic Party. It wasn't JFK, he was a blue dog Democrat. Lyndon B. Johnson knew the Democrats were hurting fiercely from Vietnam. What do you think Nixon won? Whoops. They changed this from a stop sign to a stoplight. Okay. Or no, or has it always been a stoplight? Either way, back up. So, Lyndon B. Johnson knew the Democratic Party was getting crushed. And to have any hope of winning, because it was JFK that sent over the consultants who got us in to the Vietnam era. And then Lyndon B. Johnson, I don't know if JFK didn't send just consultants. Lyndon B. finally sent over troops. But Lyndon B. Johnson wasn't a military tactician. JFK was a military tactician, as you saw from the Cuban Missile Crisis and that. He was a good commander. He made good command decisions, which he showed in World War II. He was a commander in World War II. He commanded a PT boat and the rapid response boats. And again, he commanded and he made good decisions, and I think he got a Purple Heart in World War II too. But anyways, he made very good command decisions. He was a very successful commander, naval commander, for his PT boat. So again, Lyndon B. Johnson didn't have his tactician. he did have some good military leaders, like McNamara and that. But the whole point is, who invented, the thing with the helicopters, and that's great. But the problem with doing those tactical hits, it's basically what we do with special forces, is when you pull out, as we found out in Iraq and that, which we didn't learn from Vietnam, that they come right back. And that means the people that you came in and were doing things to protect or solve a problem, once you pull out, they come right back. So, and the funny thing is, we didn't learn that from Vietnam. See, it was great to insert troops, but the problem was that once you pull out, those areas of insertion, there's no one to protect them, and you just gave back the ground. So it's a great insertion strategy, but it can't win a war. And that's what we forgot in Iraq. We lost Mosul. We won Mosul. We pulled the troops out. What happened? Mosul became an ISIS stronghold. I forget what the terrorist group that was there before. The group that was in Mosul before was the one that cut off Nick Berg's head. But once we pulled out, they came in. And then we had to do Petraeus to get it back, the surge. And we dedicated more troops and more lives lost to get back a territory we already had. We already had the territory, and now to get it back, we got to dedicate even more troops. That's the doctrine, and it is a military doctrine. Once you go out, once you go in, you never come out. That's it. Because if you go back out, then they just come right back. They have all the infrastructure, like in Iran. Just because you knock off the leaders, it's like the Democratic Party in Chicago. It's a machine, right? Just because you take out the leader doesn't mean that the machine isn't still in place. All its sub-leaders, all its tentacles are there, and they don't disappear. So when you do that structure, like we found out with the Iraqis, that's why we go back to World War II, where we reintegrated all the Japanese soldiers, the ones that were legitimately worth reintegrating, which was the majority of them, and we did it with the German soldiers, and we gave them good jobs in construction, other jobs that paid a good living wage, rebuilding their own country, building their own infrastructure. And so they were making jobs, construction engineers, everything else. So we took all their military capabilities and turned them into civil construction capabilities. They had to build new roadways, new housing, new irrigation systems, you name it. And so we did what we did during what? Our Great Depression. We built the Hoover Dam and many other things. And so we took them and we transitioned them into a good job where they have prestige in the community and they save face. And they did. All those German soldiers saved face. And they got good jobs in the community and everything else. And they rebuilt their infrastructure. What happened in World War I is we had great reparations, and it impoverished them, and they were starving. And they took large chunks of land and many other things from the Germans, and it created worse because the reparations were unrighteous. They were greedy mothers. Once they won the war, all those European nations, They were greedy son of a bitches. And they really took it to Germany. And they were unrightfully paying. I mean, they were paying reparations way beyond what they should have been paying. And that built all the hatred. And they had hyperinflation, and they let them off midday shifts, and they would have to take wheelbarrows of paper money. They had wheelbarrows of paper money running down the street with a wheelbarrow of money at lunchtime to buy bread and eggs and other staples so you could feed yourself. Because if you waited to the end of the day, the prices went up so fast that it would be double or triple. So employers let you off at lunchtime to go out and buy whatever you could with your pay. Oh, you got paid daily. Not only daily, you got paid midday. You worked 4 hours, you got paid immediately. And then you worked the next 4 hours at the end of the day, you got paid immediately. All the employers were paying immediately. You got paid 4 hours of work at lunch. You could take that money, go out and buy things. Then at the end of the day, you could take the money, go out and buy things immediately. If the German employers didn't do that, the hyperinflation would have been so great that they couldn't even maintain their staff, because people need to eat in that to go to work. As Moses pointed out in the movie, opening the grain to the slaves so the slaves could get fed so they didn't starve to death. But the thing is, that's what the German employers knew. If their people didn't eat and everything, so they let them out. They paid them for a half a day's work, and then they came back in the afternoon, worked another half a day, and they paid them again. And the funny thing is, we have all this ability to pay people instantly. You work an hour, you get paid an hour. So that's what Uber is supposed to do. You don't have to wait for your pay. You work an hour, you get paid immediately. That hour, it's off, you turn it off, boom, it hits your account. That's the gig society. So you can earn fast money. What do you think people, like I pick up a shift, I work that shift, I get cash, tips. I never wanted for money. I grew up in a gig economy. Anytime I need more money, I just pick up an extra shift. And I work multiple places, so I can pick up shifts here and there. I can get money whenever I fucking wanted it. Whenever I wanted it. If I needed money and I wasn't going to go out that night, then I'd pick up an early shift, make money then, and then I go out and spend it that night. So I'm used to the gig economy. You need money? Boom! Money's there. Want for nothing, God said. You work, you earn it. You create the intellectual properties, you earn it. They steal it, they get killed. They deserve to burn. Fuck the thief. And that's what social media companies don't understand. They encourage the theft of intellectual properties. They need the stamp down. I'm not going anywhere.
You can't park there.
Fuck you! Ah! You can't tailgate a fucking hypocrite. You can't speed another hypocrite. Wow, he tells me I can't park here. He speeds. You can't make an illegal turn. A further hypocrite. So you tailgate me, and they tell me I can't park there. You speed. You make an illegal turn. And there was one more illegal activity. But it's a fucking hypocrite. Beat the fucking shit out of them. They deserve to have it taken to them. Since you're going to have a vigilante society, since there's no law enforcement, I gave you all the systems. They should get an instant ticket and be put in jail right now and be strung up and beaten instantly. In the next 30 minutes, he should be getting the shit kicked out of him. We have all the technology. It's all in place. The car gets pulled over. They handcuff him. They tow the car. They string him up. They beat him like they do in Singapore. Within 30 minutes. You bring fucking garbage in here. Garbage. My family worked hard, was not thieves, liars, cheats. Both my mother and father had jobs. My grandparents, they weren't out there stealing. Even being alcoholics, they didn't steal from anyone. My mother got fucked from her brothers with the estate settlement. But they weren't out there stealing from people, my mother and father, from no one. You bring in fucking garbage, and then you dump it on my fucking lap my whole life, and you think they have a right. They don't have any fucking rights. It's supposed to be a zero-tolerance society. That's what it is. When you break the law, it says there's a clear defined line. It's a zero fucking tolerance. Japan, you jaywalk, you're in jail for 3 months. They don't say, oh, you jaywalk, you broke the law. We turned the other way, a blind eye. Go the fucking head. They say, we don't care if it's jaywalking. We have a zero-tolerance society. You break a law, you must be fucking punished. No exceptions. And that goes for whoever you are. Mayor Daley, the one thing I did like about him, he implemented, because of all the traffic around City Hall and that, because all the county and city employees were parking illegally, he told the city tow trucks to start towing all their vehicles. And you see any city vehicle parked illegally, police car or not, tow it. He didn't care about emergency response. That's on you. You shouldn't have parked illegally. And then what happened? They stopped illegally parking because they were towing the cars, and the city employees had to pay the ticket. They had to go to court. They had to pay for their vehicle to get out of impound, out of their own paycheck. Out of their own paycheck. The same thing my friend Sam did. He told his semi driver, go to the exit and turn around. He didn't go to the exit. He cut through the median. The truck got stuck. He zoomed in on Google Earth, saw what was going on. He said, you didn't go to the exit. You didn't do what I said. I'm taking it out of your paycheck. He had a GPS location on the truck. He zoomed in. He's like, you called up. I told you what to do. You tried to cut through the median. You're paying for the tow. I'm docking your pay. So, Sam, I was right there when it was happening. And he docked his pay. No? And so, I don't get it. That's why black neighborhoods are fucking garbage. Because it's tolerance. Why do you think Iraq is garbage? Garbage. Because Syria, why is it garbage? Because they tolerate it. Any society, like the Italians in Italy, they tolerated the mafia. They're garbage. What do you think a society that doesn't tolerate, very efficient, highly productive? So Japan, the banks crashed because they tolerated corruption at a certain level. And it all collapsed. You have a zero tolerance. You tolerate nothing. That's why India is a piece of fucking shit country, where in China they put you on your knees and blow your brains out immediately. It sends a message to the rest of the public. Same size, but their GDP is 4 to 5 times as big. Because they have more of a zero tolerance, and they got a president who's even has more zero tolerance. I read before 16 all the anti-corruption. Those people in the government are running scared. Why do you think the British businessman got poisoned? Because he was doing stuff with these military person and a non-military wife and doing a business, and he didn't want to be found out doing this illegal business. So what did they do? They killed the contact, the British businessman. That's how he ended up dying. But again, he put himself in that way of doing illegal business with them. But because of the crackdown on corruption, they wanted to cover up. But they got busted. Here is Tau. And this is basically a historical site. This building has historical status. When they were renovating it, they actually got shut down because they stripped back some stuff they didn't have approval on from the Historical Society, and they were shut down and in court fighting. You can only alter things so far, and they went further than they should be. They went down to the raw studs, and they weren't allowed to. So they shut it down for a while. And then it all worked out in court. I don't know what the compromise was, but it was a court order compromise between them and the Historical Society. But it's a historical building, which makes the building much more valuable. But what do you think drug dealers and nightclubs are about? It's because they tolerate it. My friends lost nightclubs because of drug dealers. The drink was shut down. They lost their liquor license because of drug dealers. I'll give you many others that lost their liquor license because they didn't tamp down on drug dealing. When you have a tolerance, you lose your license. I'll give it to Billy Deck, him and the other Hispanic guy with him, Arturo. They were much better about tamping down on drug dealing. So that, yeah, they were much better about tamping down. But the whole point is, these people take down your business. Kenny and Cal lost kaboom. What happened? A drug dealer selling liquid ecstasy in the club. And what happened? The girl OD'd, overdosed on it, who happened to be the daughter of the Attorney General of Minnesota. Well, that was the end of the nightclub for them. So when you tolerate these things, the Bible doesn't, you burn in hell. See, the Bible, you think grace, not really. You don't know the Bible. Was Moses offering his brother, half-brother, in a way? Really, he was adopted, so no, not half-brother. I'm sorry. Just fully adopted. But either way, was he offering him compromise? You keep half the slaves, I'll take half the slaves, or the slaves will work, 50, this days of the week, and slaves will be off those days of the week. No. He said all or nothing. He didn't say, let me take this little bit and then I'll leave all the rest of the slaves and we'll make a compromise. There was no compromise. And every time he didn't, Egyptians died. Up to the last one, the firstborn of Egypt. That included Jews. All firstborns, if they weren't marked by the blood, they died. Any firstborn in Egypt died. So when you look at these countries like Iraq or anything else, it's because they tolerate the fucking bullshit. So you reap what you sow. So you create your own environments through what you tolerate. You create your friendships on what you accept. You create your relationship on what you accept. If you don't work out your issues and you tolerate them, well, your relationship is shit. Me and Jen didn't tolerate shit from each other. If we had issues, we worked them out immediately. It was the outside world's garbage. Not our relationship. Our interpersonal was incredibly awesome. But that's why Mexico's a fucking shitbag country. Or El Salvador. They tolerate it. And so they get what they deserve. Just like this city was going fucking bankrupt with corruption. It was tolerated. They kept on voting in the scumbags. You gotta sever the ties, clean up the filth, empty the hallways, and drain the swamp, like Trump said. It's a purge. And once purged, it needs to stay forever purged. You don't let them back in. As soon as you let up the pressure, they come right back. They're just waiting for you to open the gates. So take the Mosul example. Do you have a license to solicit? Do you have a license? Yeah. 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 They used to have a panhandling license. They did. Look it up. And they did have a panhandling license. I forget where, but it was here in the United States. basically, that's how charities started. They were panhandling. And so they gave them a license to be able to ask for donations in the street for charities. But it came from panhandling. And those panhandlers became working for charitable, getting donations for the charities. So that's where panhandling was converted to. They took something filthy and fucking disgusting and turned it into something good. They put them to work. Since you're gonna stand on the fucking street corner here, here's the cup. But the thing is, the Salvation Army, they learned there's a lock on the tills. Because what happened? They would panhandle and reach in, take the money out, stick it in their pocket, put the cup out, and when they came back and they said, oh, I just made a few bucks. Why do you think they have a lock on the kettle with the Salvation Army? Especially with those gold coins going in and people volunteered to ring the bell. They found out that those people would steal from the kettle. So they put a lock on the kettle. So they couldn't get it. Now they could turn it upside down and try to shake it. But they actually were stealing from the donation jar. How many of these businesses where you have the change on the counter and that? How many of them have their employees steal? Or how many of them steal from the jar itself? Truly, all those little donation jars, and they get filled with all that money. Don't tell me that they're not stealing. I know for a fact they're stealing from the till. There's nothing counting it. There's no weight sensor in it. Now, that's off because of paper and everything else, but there's nothing counting what's going in. And believe me, they steal from the till. But charities, they get milked in 50 million different ways, like in North Carolina. Do you know North Carolina, cancer charity, in place for decades. Money went in, didn't go out to any cancer patients, really. And what happened? Did charities sue them? Did the American Cancer Association sue them? No. They got charged in court. They got fined by the government. But the charities didn't sue them for fraud. How about, let's talk about the occult. The churches, these things. Like, let's talk about Tom Cruise's. The thing of signing over money and so on and so forth. But what they brought these people in and they took all the money from them, that's not how it works. The money is for the betterment of their life. They can go through a government donation thing, but they should never live below their means. They don't give it away to other people to live above them. They live above the other people. That's why we have HEMS provision, health, education, maintenance, and support. And that money gives them the right to live above. What they did at the cults is the leaders would live above, like our congressmen and everything else, getting all the coffers filled with all the tax money, and then living above you. Well, that's what the leaders of the occult do. It's a Ponzi scam. So you come in at the base, they strip you of everything, and then you live below. This is why God said, if you don't pay me, everybody fucking dies. You can't strip away my wealth. You can't strip away my intellectual properties. You can't take it as yours. It doesn't fucking work that way. Make no mistake about it. You can't get up your false fucking gods and praise Jesse Jackson for Operation Breadbasket or whatever the fuck you want. You die. You have no fucking right. So, you don't get it in the Bible. It tells you the fruits of your labor, and you live by the fruits of your labor. So the church can't diminish you, so the church can live larger. So pastors, priests, the congregation, so you can live less. The Bible is all about capitalism. You can be a trillionaire. You can have 20, 30, 40, 50, $100 trillion. It's all fucking yours. And the point is, the Bible doesn't encourage sloth. People not wanting to produce. If you want the money, go work. Go create. No fucking entitlement. So I talk about nutritional systems and that, but these people are tied to their works. Where it comes from. They get the goodwill, not you. And that goes back to the comments with women. Who gets the goodwill? Other men or me? And goodwill is very broad-based. Go back to the Bible. As you see in the story of Moses, she throws mercy. But you have to understand how that goodwill goes. Go read in the Bible how that goodwill works. One, giving your life. Number two, for women, it shows them, like, who? Esther. What did she do? She screwed the shit out of the king. That was her goodwill. She didn't bring great intellectual properties to the kingdom. The king created many things. She did not. She was loyal, and as it shows you her going through the cleansing and then giving of herself, and that saved the Jewish people. But you have to understand in the Bible. So you think I say things that are not biblically grounded, you're absolutely wrong. That makes you backstabbing, lying, cheating, money-grubbing pieces of shit. And you create a proxy, oh, we're going to give to this charity or give to that charity. Well, then I put out the thing with the movie with Denzel Washington as he steals from the community. And they did this in the mafia thing, and it's true. The mafia guy who sent me, Anthony Occardo, trying to buy favor with me. He sent me to a pizza place, and on him, I ate one pizza. Had nothing to do, never went back again. But he was trying to buy my favor. Funny. The head of the Chicago Mafia trying to buy a little kid's favor. And I rejected it. Just like when my bank account at this bank in Chicago said $1 million. And it was in there, truly, $1 million. And I kept the receipt just as one day, really, I can't wait to have my bank account have this. But I didn't touch a penny of it. And the error was corrected and removed. I could have withdrawn as much as I did, like the guy in Australia did. He just kept on withdrawing money, withdrawing money, withdrawing money, withdrawing money. I didn't touch a penny of it. So I was already preordained and pre-tested. These people are filthy fucking scumbags in comparison. Give them $1 million error and let it sit in their account. And watch what they do. So these are things I already went through. God doesn't give a shit about the black person down on Chicago. Fuck them. Where is their own community? Where is their own churches? And you think I'm saying this? David pointed it out to me. He's like, we go down here, and David used to do charitable work, and he'd be like, look at all the black churches, Michael. And then you come down to Chicago, and you see the black bums. Where are the black missionaries? Where are the Urban League? Where is the black civic leaders? Where are they? And nowhere to be found. And him and his wife are Asian, and she grew up in the ghettos in Malaysia. All these black people, the way they live down here, 10 times better than the way she lived in Malaysia. And all those kids got out of the ghetto. They used education, highly focused on education, and moved out of the ghetto. She had 4 siblings. All of them became highly successful. Or 3 other siblings. You see black fucking bums. They're pieces of shit. And who told me this too? I asked the black bum outside of Martini Ranch. I said, right down the street is a black bar. Lots of young black kids spending shitloads of money on the club, their clothing, their cars, the music, everything. I said, this is primarily all white bar. Why are you over here begging? Where a block away is an all black bar. People like you. Right? I said, so why are you over here? And he said, if I go over there, those motherfuckers would beat the living shit out of me if I asked for $1. They would kick me, they would kill me if I asked them for $1. So I come over here because of white guilt. You know, slavery and everything else. So I can get money because I'm a black person and they just naturally feel guilty for me. So I can milk them. Not exact words, but true conversation. And he did. Pony up. White people feel sorry for me because, you know, slavery and everything else. So I can come over here and put out my cup and they just pour money in. I go over there and like, no, nigger, get out of here, nigger. Oh, like the Michael Brown thing. But it's worse. He rolled people, didn't deserve it. They weren't beggars. So that's not a good analogy. My friend Jeff King, I gave him tons of money. I let him use my scooter. I gave him tons of money. I helped him out with his girlfriend. I helped him walk on to the University of Arizona. I helped him with his lifting program. He grew up in Camden, New Jersey, in the ghetto. I helped him in unbelievable ways. He made the team. He walked on, and so on. And so I see him at a pizza place, and I'm a little tight on money. Anytime he was tight on money, I would just buy him things. You know, give it to him. Charity. So I said, one day, I said, hey, and I just asked once, I said, hey, you know, you owe me a ton of money. I said, is it possible I can get, you know, give me a little money and I can buy a slice? buy a slice? He told me no. This is at Mama's Pizza in Tucson. He told me no. He was a Q-Dog now. And then he told me no good black man would ever ask for their money back. So that means black people lend to black people and never ask for a penny back? So black banks that lend into black communities never get payments for their mortgages or anything else? Because he told me, and now he was a pledge in the Q-Dogs, which he showed me his brand. They physically brand the arm. The branding of slavery, they continued as Q-Dogs, and they burn it into the side of the skin. And he went out and with 4 others that all played football, and they went around campus on spring break beating up little white kids. Made ESPN go grab the archives. And I complained way before this happened, and I told Art Grayhouse. He was a running back for the University of Arizona. He was a Q-Dog. He was a good friend of mine. He said, well, he's going through that zealot stage. And I understand. There's religious zealots and so on. And I said, I understand, but you got to address them. This is long before the issue. And I said, what their attitude is incorrect. And that it's going to be a serious problem. I tried to save Jeff and others. I knew all 4 of them. I was actually friends with all 4 of them. And I couldn't believe it. I was aghast when I saw it on ESPN when I was in spring break in Tampa with Lance Levy. They went around beating up small white kids. Now, Jeff, he never got out. The other 3 got out and pummeled them. 3 black guys jumped out of the car, pummeling small white kids. Now, I tried to talk to leadership, as I told the black community constantly here, clean up your fucking problems. I talked to black realtors, black leaders. I said, you need to implement a zero tolerance policy. Why? You need to break these motherfuckers. You can't give them an inch anymore. But I cried out for all the years, and I went down there, gave the Pacific Garden, Salvation Army up here. Now, I'll give you one thing. One black guy at the Salvation Army, he actually gave my wallet back. I dropped it on Elston, on Clybourne, near the Salvation Army. He returned it. No cash in it. I was fine. I got all my IDs, my driver's license, and all that back. I was good. That's your reward. Keep the cash. I didn't ask him where the cash went. I was just happy to have my wallet back. The cash is yours. Truly, like the one Hispanic girl at Export. She found my phone. I left it. She found it. It was a female Hispanic. She worked as a maintenance, janitorial. And she was at the front desk, and I said, well, my phone cost me X, and then I gave her a bonus, I don't know, 40, 60 bucks. And I said, here. And they're like, oh, you don't need it. No, I insist. You gave me back my phone. I would have to jump through these hoops, get a new phone because it's lost and stolen. You need to get rewarded for your good works. Here you go. And that was in front of a bunch of people I didn't mean it that way, but she found and returned it. But then a Hispanic kid, well, 3 Hispanic kids, 1 female, 2 males tried to steal my phone. And I caught them just as they were about to grab it off the machine because I was supersetting. I moved away from it. I was watching the phone, and they moved towards my phone and were about to grab it. I dropped my set early, walked over, and I'm like, that's my phone, man. And then they didn't say anything, walked away. I was on the second floor and went straight down the stairs, and they left. They were in the gym, and this is where the city of Chicago gave free memberships, and they were in the gym looking to steal stuff. They weren't working out. They were walking the gym to see if they could steal phones and other stuff, walking through the locker rooms and that. And they had cops there still. And they didn't care. And they had cops on the first floor. The cops didn't come up to the second, but they were still there trying to steal right in front of the cops, basically. Because if you grab it, it goes missing. The cops aren't checking people. But again, they tried. Then the front desk guy. This was a great one at Export. He was a Hispanic kid. And I lost my Samsung phone. And it was a new, modern one, brand new and so on. I left it on the machine. I moved away. And then when I went back, it wasn't there. And what happened? This kid, he was a white kid, he went up and gave it to the front desk. So, and he told me, he saw me looking at the machine. He's like, hey, dude, I was just there. I thought the phone was left. I just turned it in at the front desk. Just go up to the front desk. I gave it to that guy, and we could see the front desk. And he pointed. So I went up to the front desk, and I said, hey, did anyone turn in a Samsung blank phone? And the kid looked at me and said, no one turned in the phone. And I said, really? I said, see that guy right over there? He just told me he gave it to you. He's like, oh, yeah, that's right. You're right. Oh, yeah. And he pulled open the door. He's like, oh, here's your phone. My mistake. Why wouldn't you fire him immediately for stealing? It's funny because I was going to bring up the guy to the counter, too. He waved at me when I pointed at him because I told him I was coming to the desk. So it's interesting on this. So the Bible is correct. You reap what you sow. So as the cops drive around here and they do nothing about people loitering, jaywalking, littering, trespassing, and all the other stuff, they don't do shit. Well, what do you think? They break into the stores. They loiter around in their van. What does a thief do? They stock their area. They surveil their target. And then on Sunday night, like happened to my friend Billy Apt, but these guys were idiots. And he showed me all the video. They rammed into his store, Apt Electronics in Glenview. And I saw the van run in, basically go through the doors, them drop out, jump out, run into the facility, and then they see all the people working. Yeah, because the store always has people there. Even when it's closed, there's people doing inventory stocking. They're doing all kinds of things, so there's people there 24/7. They didn't think so. And lo and behold, they turned around and ran back to the van, pulled it out, and took off. But he had the video he showed me. Smash and grab. But the funny thing is, employees work there 24/7. What do you think's going to happen to thieves if the city opens up 24/7? What time frame do they have to steal something? They don't. Do you know 24/7 is a huge deterrent for thieves? Then the subway and the bus lines and people are moving around. That means you don't get rapists and muggers and other... Truly, you don't. Because people are moving around the city 24/7. So there are always people around to cry out for help. There's always eyewitnesses. That's why my model of 24/7 works also to suppress all kinds of crime, from rape to muggings to smash and grabs and that, because they're open 24 hours a day. So, again, it's a huge deterrent because the subways are people moving around and everything else. They wait, like the guy pushing somebody on the subway, because businesses shut down. But if there are people riding the subway in and out, those things don't happen because there's tons of witnesses. And some of them might be vigilantes. Truly. I've witnessed things and went and helped many times in my life. So, again, some of them might be vigilantes coming to the rescue. What do you think Guardian Angels did? What do you think my friend Kimbo used to walk around Chicago? He used to carry a big stick. And in the martial arts he used, they used those sticks. And you don't want to be whacked with him. He split your head in a second. But he could break your arm, break your leg. He could do all kinds of wicked shit to you. And here's a livery driver. See this one? Extreme tailgating me. 71644 LY livery. Extreme tailgating me. But there's a Chicago cop sitting on his fucking ass doing nothing. So you pay them to do nothing. They drive around, they ignore the tailgating, they ignore everything. I was waiting for a warning to get pulled over with my light that was out. I was waiting. I thought they were going to pull me over. They should have pulled me over and gave me a warning. And I would explain to the officer I went multiple times to get it fixed, and all these places refused to fix it. But I was hoping they'd pull me over. They should have pulled me over in a heartbeat. But they didn't. They're just a bunch of fucking lazy-ass scumbags. So I watch. And I see all these people doing, like they throw their food on the street and the rodents come in that. And they don't do anything about their littering. I never thrown food on the street. I told you about one banana peel and one apple core and one Coke can. And I thought, oh, I did it once, and then I thought about it. No, it's not. It's biodegradable, but then it brings ants and everything else into this, and then they start eating human food, and then they get a taste for human food that's not theirs, and then they start migrating to the trash cans and everything else. Because humans, you know, we do farming and everything else, and we make ready sources of food, so they go find where we are. That's why they say, don't feed the bears. Let them go to the natural food chain. If you make the food chain associated with you, well, then the bears are going to come to you. Why do you think we have pigeon problems? Why do you think I'm against bird feeders? Truly. The asshole just wanted to make money with bird feeders. Birds eat lots of worms and insects. We get overpopulation because of them. What do you think? They eat mosquitoes too. Do you know that? When you feed the birds, all these people feeding the pigeon, then they don't eat the mosquitoes and everything. You fuck up the food chain. Read the book Quest for Size. It talks about not fucking up the food chain. Look at all these cops down here, dedicated. And I watch all these years I came down here, the public intoxication. And they never went into the bars and gave them warnings for people coming out drunk. How many of those people got in DUIs? Like the fight here, coming out, and they hit the kid, and he hit his head on the curb in the fight and split his skull and died. Where were the cops doing the compression bandage to save the kid? They were too busy covering it up. Northwestern University. But that kid died. And the city of Chicago covered it up. The police covered it up. The politicians covered it up. It was Mayor Daley's nephew. They covered it the fuck up. So if you're doing evil to me and covering it up, you should all go away for a long fucking time. But the Northwestern professor, she had to go out there, and he didn't want to do it either. Do you know that? Go grab that. He didn't want to do it because he was afraid to fight against the political machine. But he took it. All the law firms in the city of Chicago turned her down. Do you know that? Because they get city business in that. And they didn't want to be suing the city. But the thing is, it was a clear case of wrongful death. So, I don't get it. These bums, they allow them to walk in the street and jaywalk. If I hit them, it's not wrongful death. It's on the city of Chicago. They allow them to loiter and trespass. If I hit them with my bike as I'm walking, or I come out of the door and I open the door and there's a bum laying at the ground of the door and I hit him with the door, he wants to sue me and charge assault and battery charges because I'm walking out and I hit the bum with the door. But the city of Chicago can be sued over all these bums. The ones that are in traffic, their negligence of duty, they can be sued. That bum gives you a disease, they can be sued. They allow them to trespass and loiter. That's on the city of Chicago. So if they give you a disease, it's on them. You don't have to worry about the bum. You sue the city. You just have to prove it comes from the bum, and I already gave you that. Where you have the DNA from the virus. So I already gave you ways to track the history of a pathogen. So again, you sue the city. They're not supposed to be trespassing or loitering. That's on the city of Chicago. They're not supposed to be sleeping on the bus or the fucking train. It's not a shelter. And I used to go in the subway and they used to allow them to sleep in the subway. That's what the city is doing. It's not funding its shelter system right. It's not working with Urban Ministries or Pacific Gardens. It's being in negligence. That's what New York and others and LA, the fucking city of LA, all the corruption. You know all that money in corruption? They had so much money paying too much for construction and many other things, overpaying. It's supposed to be a blind bidding. And who wins? The lowest bid. The lowest bid wins. It's a blind bid and the lowest bid. Why? Because people bid exactly what they think it's worth. What they're willing to spend. How they have to make money, and so they blind bid it. And everybody puts in their true offer. And the city should keep a history of it so they know what the price ranging was on the bidding from the different types of firms. But it's the lowest fucking bid. But how do they get in? They have to be pre-certified. You don't have a right to be in the street.
Ooh, beer.
But it's supposed to be blind bidding. All the federal jobs, Trump didn't have to do shit. It's already set up. We studied it in economics. All government operations, all business operations are supposed to run with blind bids. And you pre-certify the people before the bid. And if somehow they can't complete it for the budget, they don't get used again. They lied. They undercut and then tried to inflate the budget, saying, oh, well, we underestimate. That's on you, motherfucker. You go out and take out insurance then. You know, Lloyd's of London will give you insurance on a bid. But guess what the insurance company is going to do? They're going to go through all your bid, what you costed for steel and labor and everything else, and they're going to use competitive analysis. But they'll give you an insurance policy. And if the project goes over, the insurance policy will pay out to cover the cost, depending on how much coverage you purchased. You purchase an extra $1 million, well, then it pays you out an extra $1 million to cover the overruns. But that's on you. My friend James McHugh, I used to work with James McHugh, Walsh, Construction, many of them. And the thing is, it's supposed to all go off in blind bids, and anyone in politics is supposed to go into a blind trust. So they don't know what they're directly investing in. So they can't pander to their own thing. You know how many politicians? That's why OPEC's illegal. Because when you can fix the price of oil, you can buy options on the United States market. Do you know OPEC and them have been defrauding the U.S. markets, the London exchanges? Oh, yeah. You know they've been doing security fraud and getting away with it. And how do they do this? They know what the oil price is going to be. It's not a supply and demand. They govern this, and they know what the price is going to be. And then you just go out there and you buy Exxon stock or Mobil. And they have sovereign wealth funds. And they pass down information. This is why we don't allow the bears or any monopolies. Because what they do is they front run. They've been stealing from Americans and other places. Oh, terrorist organizations know this. They get information ahead of time. There's a lot of ways to make money illegally when things are opaque. So they front run on the exchange. I've been complaining about this for decades. Number one, about OPEC. You can't have a Russian exchange, commodity exchange that has oil on it. When you fix prices, no. That's why we have the Public Utility Board. So they have to justify price raises. But what happened to the utilities? And this could have happened with People's Gas and others. What did the utility companies do? The electric companies. Pull the Wall Street Journal article. What did they do? They took money that was dedicated for CapEx, that were line service fees. Do you see those tower fees in that in your cell phone bill? Those fees go to support the infrastructure. They're not revenue. They're dedicated totally to CapEx spending. And if they can lower the cost of maintenance, they're supposed to lower the line fees. Oh, yeah. And they can be called to go out to blind bidding because they charge people for line fees for supporting the towers. And in that must be a blind bid. You must meet certification to be one of the bidders. You must be certified. That way they don't do false bids. Somebody getting the job doesn't have the capabilities. They must be proven to be able to deliver. And only those that prove they can deliver are in the bidding pool. They just have to prove they deliver. They have the people and they can bid. So the whole thing is they booked them as revenue. They're not revenue. They're not earnings. They're a service fee. So the electric companies were hurting and their stock was hurting. So what did they do? They converted the line fees into revenue. The CapEx money into revenue. And they padded their books. Not only here in Illinois, they did it all around the country. I don't know how they do it in Europe and that, but there's one Wall Street Journal, but go into the natural gas and there's many other industries that do this. They take things that are dedicated for capital expenditures and that, and those industries, who hurts? All the people that were doing the maintenance. Argo T didn't clean, the health inspectors didn't force them to clean their barista machines. I'm sitting in class in Kendall College, and a guy, he does servicing of barista machines. He has a company here in Chicago, and he works with coffee houses cleaning their barista machines. And Argo T was always late on the bill to him. And he talked in our class that, he talked about his startup business and that how he specializes in cleaning all these coffee machines. But he said to us in the class, now my teacher, he was a black guy who worked in the business school at Kendall College, and they had when I went there, they had a new president of Kendall College, which was a female who was looking to build out their business component, hospitality, but the business end of hospitality. And so they had a new leadership of Kendall College. But the whole point is, he's in the class, he talks about his startup, he's doing very well, he said. And that's why he could shed. I think he does it for Starbucks, and he did it for Caribou and many other coffee houses. And so he was in a fire, Argo T. He was sick and tired of them being months and months late on the bill, always stringing him out. So why does he get to not put up with it? Everybody owes me the money and they can string me out. Fuck you! Pay me! Now! So it's interesting. All these people blowing lights and that. You know how much revenue there is for the city of Chicago in tickets then? That the city of Chicago cops are ignoring? And here, let me tell you another true story about the city of Chicago cops. They give out parking tickets, right? So what did they do? They didn't work much of the month. And then at the end of the month, they had to turn in a quota. And so what did they do? Now, the quota was there to make sure they worked. It's like the rate at Wells Brothers to make sure you're working. The rate is there to make sure you're fucking working. So you can't lie and say, oh, I did this. That's why they have the rate. They put the rate on the job to make sure that they're getting their money's worth out of you when you're running the machine. And if you can't keep the rate, then you tell them. Maybe the rate is overestimated and requiring you to produce too much. But you tell them why you can't keep the rate. You don't do what they did to my brother-in-law. They fucking scrap parts because they couldn't keep the rate. They just did the parts and they didn't check them right and they scrapped them and it cost them a shitload of money. And then they're wondering why they don't have 401k matches and everything else. Then he found employees punching themselves in and out. Other employees goes payrolling, punching them in early, punching them out late, and helping each other steal goes payrolling. They were there, but they came in later and they left earlier, and they had a buddy club where they would punch each other in early and then punch each other out late. So they were stealing. Then they would spend a half an hour or more on the toilet. They would go in there away from the machine and they would spend a half an hour or more on the toilet while the machine was down, not making the parts. And then they're not hitting rates or they're scrapping parts because multiple times a day they would go to the toilet, just sit on the toilet for a half an hour a pop, like the big fat fucking cops, the 500-pound police cop sitting there on division. 500 fucking pound black guy. It's unfucking believable. If a cop looks at me nasty, they should get the fucking shit beat out of them. They deserve it. They're the piece of fucking scum. As the Bible, you bow your eyes to God. You look down because you're fucking filth. You don't deserve the right to look up. That's the whole point of humbling yourself, understanding you're unclean. To cast your eyes is unholy. You're filth. So that's why they do it. I understand in the Bible, they say it means equals instant death. So I'm not preaching that in that way, but you got to understand. It is that way for a fucking reason. You are unworthy. So getting back to my girlfriend Jen, never lying, never cheating, never stealing. Truly. Never committing a crime. A virgin. She was pure. No lying, no stealing, no cheating. She didn't cheat in sports. She didn't lie. She didn't do this. And she had all those attributes. She was pure. And I believed, I used to call her LG, Little Blessing Jennifer, my blessing from God. But she was clean. She was pure. It's interesting how that worked out. And she was very spiritual. So the whole point is, I add these things up. What happened and then what broke it, it's the filth of man that constantly fucks over my life. He wants the filth to go away. I'm not supposed to see filth anymore. See no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. They have all the means, they just don't do it because they're lazy pieces of garbage. just like fixing the streets and everything else. The reason it's a shortfall is the politicians, as I put out there before in Chicago, losing money, and they give themselves raises. When you're losing money, they fire you as the CEO. Unless it's a strategic loss like Amazon did, where it's to gain market share, called the loss leader. Understand what loss leaders are. That's where you sell a product for less than it's worth to gain market share. So Amazon did that. They were able to grab market share, and then once they had the market share, they turned it for profit. They were able to flip the switch. But you got to understand, that model only worked because there wasn't stiff competition. Barnes and Nobles, Borders, they weren't in the online book market. They weren't. They focused only on the store. They left it open. So did Best Buy and all that. They left the online presence open. They allowed the window to open. Amazon didn't have any competition. Walmart left it open. Target left it open. They didn't protect their marketplace. They only focused on the brick and mortar. They made themselves vulnerable. So the Amazon thing doesn't work in a competitive market. Do you know that, right? Because you'll never be able to flip the switch. Any market share you gain, you'll never be able to turn it on for a profit. So make no mistake about it. The Amazon only worked because it was unprotected markets and there was no competition. So once they got to a point of acquiring so much of the online presence, all they had to do was raise prices a little bit and flip over the profit. But they had pricing power. In a competitive market, as you see in the airline business, and this is what happens, in the airline business, when competitors raise prices, airlines don't. They don't follow a competitor. That competitor has to justify that in the airline business with value. That's why they don't follow. Because no value added, they will lose market share. So airlines only can raise prices when they add value. And when they add value, they have to add like extra free beverages or premium liquor or, free movies or free internet or other things that they get for pennies on a dollar, but they benchmark it to what retailers would pay for it. What you would pay as a retail client. Not wholesale, retail pricing. And they use that to raise their prices. They have to add value. No airline will follow because they know that they'll just go to the ones that keep the price lower, and the ones that keep the price lower, there's nothing extra they're paying for, so they can maintain that price. And they don't allow them to steal market share. It's very hard to gain business in the airlines. But when people lower prices, every competitor follows. No one follows up, but every competitor follows down. Every single airline will drop their prices. Why? If they don't, they will lose massive market share rapidly. How can you offset this? Increase your perk program, your reward program, so you keep your loyal clients, your most profitable segment. Increase your points. Like Citibank has a new card, 6 points or whatever. And a girl's advertising. It's a good commercial. But again, you have to understand that So you don't have to join them by lowering prices. You can offset by increasing your perks, which you get for pennies on a dollar. If you lower your prices, you're losing dollars. You only want to lose pennies. So how do you keep them without losing dollars? This is how competition works. And who has the better intellectual capability wins. They do win. The others will lose and you will win. Whether you're the one that raised prices because you did it right and knew it was something that's highly trendy and the clients will love this added feature and they will flock to it because of this added feature. And so you have pricing power. If you can bring something somebody else doesn't. It's like in the market for a girlfriend. If you have certain things that other people don't, that makes you much more desirable in a good way. We're talking about because the dating market's been fucked because of all the thieves like Scarface. And I watched this. Jenny, who was a girl, her first boyfriend was a drug dealer. Monica's boyfriend, who she had a kid with, was a drug dealer. And because they had the drug money, they looked desirable. And the dating market was unfair because these drug dealers had the bling. They had the house, they had the car, they had the money, they had the clothing, they had the lifestyle. They could woo these people. See it in all the movies. They show it, and that's truly what happens, and that's why the girls come. And it makes an unfair dating market. I want to make a fair dating market by getting rid of these organizations, the Triad, the Yakuza, the Italian Russian Mafia. So they can't get the girls. So it makes more girls for me. And that's what I used to always say. If I could clean up things, then there's more girls available and I could get a better girl. See, Jen was so anti-crime. Unlike Jenny was swayed by the drug dealer, or Monica swayed by the drug dealer, that they could get the bling. And so they looked, but what happened? He didn't have any Social Security survivor benefits. Monica had a child. Tell any girl, if you have that drug dealer and the drug dealer doesn't have a legit job, then they don't pay into the Social Security system. And if they prematurely die like Monica's boyfriend did, because, he didn't work. I have survivor benefits behind me. I'm fully paid up on my 40 quarters and everything else. So if I croak, as my father croaked, he worked. He left behind survivor benefits for all 5 kids. This is another thing I disagree with my brother and sister about. My father cared. He worked. He earned his money. He left behind survivor benefits. He served his country. He served in World War II. Now, he was a cook, and he was a really good cook. And he should have went into the restaurant business. My father would have been great in the restaurant business. He was a really good cook. But the thing is, he died. He didn't abandon my mother or the kids. He left 5 checks. Each of us, until we were 18, got survivor benefits. He left 5 checks behind. Monica got screwed. Drug dealer, no 40 quarters, no survivor benefits. So you get with these people, and then any money you get can all be taken away from you. The house, the clothing, everything. So why would you, as a female, ever be with anyone who does any form of illegal business. What happened to Sue, this girl in my small group, who has a disability, graduated from the University of Illinois. Last time I talked to her, 16 or so. But I actually have a crush on her. She's Korean. She never knew. I never told her. But I actually liked her and wanted to date her. But the whole point is, and I helped her family out with this golf thing. They had a father was developing a golf club. But the whole point is, I really liked her. But I don't see her now. And I gave her a drive once to small group. But the whole point is, the bling, like in the black market. All those gangbangers getting the girls and that, looking like the cool kid and everything else. Well, all those good black guys, it's hard for them to compete. And then when they do illegal things and get into college, truly, and they do corruption and they bribe like Eric Dickerson and others, and they get that money on campus, and they can get the girls and everything because they get all the money illegally. How does another black guy who's doing the righteous thing, like my friend Costa, do you know they asked him to take steroids at the University of Arizona when he was playing football? And they told him that they said if he beefs up and does steroids, that he'd probably get a scholarship. These were, I forget which coach, and he told them, no, I'm not taking steroids. And he eventually left the team. But he didn't sacrifice his morals and take steroids. And his brother and father both died of cancer, which is a smart move because steroids could have put him at a big jeopardy. And also, since he had two relatives, his father and brother die of cancer, if he did drugs, he was much more susceptible to cancer. If you don't know this, if you have a family history of cancer, and the more alcohol and cocaine or illegal drugs and that, the more likely you're going to get cancer. So you have to live a cleaner life not to trigger the cancer if you have a history of cancer. Like Angela Jolie has a history of cancer in her life. Well, one way to avoid getting cancer is live a cleaner life, because it doesn't activate the genetics. It's already inside you, but if you live a better life, it doesn't activate the genetics. But also, stress is a big activator, and you worry about people going into the police force. Now, I rip on them in one way, but I like to save the righteous people. So, fire department and all that, if you have too much stress and you have a family history of certain things, congenital heart disease, cancer, or others, as they did this whole huge study and found out stress is the number one trigger because it suppresses the immune system. But for people that have, now it lets other diseases in, stress, because it suppresses. So cops, when they're too stressed, cortisol's too high, it suppresses the immune system. Why? Because the body has to produce adrenaline, it has to produce oxygen, red blood cells, because it's a fight or flight thing. And so their immune system is temporarily suppressed. But if they stay in a high-stress job and don't get off and relieve the cortisol and lower the stress, and their immune system is constantly stressed, then they'll get sick on the job very easy. They'll contract diseases from these people they shoot, military personnel, the same way. In the Middle East, why do you think all those military personnel got all those diseases? When you're in a sense of chronic stress suppresses the immune system. And when it suppresses the immune system, that means you're open to getting the common cold. Our military's a bunch of idiots who runs them. You get the common cold. You get flus. You get stomach ailments. You get other things that actually make them what? Less ability to what? To do their job at their finest capability. So it's one thing going through boot camp, but they have to monitor them for cortisol levels and making sure they're not putting them away where they're going to give them an impaired immune system and they're going to get sick easy as they go on these assignments and they're exposed to all these things, chemical, biological. Well, you need a good immune system. So firefighters don't understand that smoke inhalation and everything else. When your immune system is suppressed, if you get in any carcinogenics, those carcinogenics get cleaned up by the white blood cells. Do you know that? They devour it. But when you have a suppressed immune system, it can't devour. This is what they don't understand, the taxi drivers and that, with the tailgating and everything else, that it allows the free radicals to go out and grow. And the white blood cells don't produce enough and don't devour it. And so you end up getting all kinds of illnesses. So go out and continue your tailgating. This is what you're doing to me. Why do you think I can't heal? You put me in a state of hyper stress. You're supposed to be taking it to these motherfuckers. It's an indirect war. It's a proxy war. And in proxy wars, we still hold those people accountable and we take them the fuck out. But they don't understand that with the police and everything. They're commanders. They're people that Cook County Health. I call it Cook County stupidity. Lake County Health. Stupid motherfuckers. Dr. Fauci or whatever was doing the pandemic. What a dumb motherfucker. But anyways, this impaired allows the disease in. So when you work a high-stress occupation, you have to understand the environmental hazards. If you work a high-stress, cortisol is not bad. It's there to give you energy, strength. It works with adrenaline. But things have to give in the body. It's a give and take. You don't understand that in the body? You should understand it's a give and take. It'll give you something, but it has to take from somewhere else. And so it suppresses the immune system to give you more adrenaline and more energy, cortisol and so on, to do certain things. But that makes you susceptible on the other end. All I do is open the eyes of my heart, Lord, to let me see how it really is. That's it. So you have to understand this about environments. And when you go into environments, everybody can't work. And this is why I hate them saying men and women are the same. It is a fucking bunch of bullshit. I hate the fucking LGBTQ because that's what they promote. It's no fucking difference. And it's a bunch of bullshit. And so when you go into these environments, your job, they have to check you for immune system. They have to know family history. You're going to be in a high carcinogenic job. Firefighter. Smoke inhalation, chemical, biological hazards, and so on. I need to know your family history. And I need to know your white blood cell count. They don't track it on police and firefighters, do they? Or military personnel track white blood cell count. Sometimes you have to pull people out of rotation because their white blood cell count is too low. They can't go. They need to generate more white blood cells. They need to relax and calm down, rest and relaxation. We called it tender love and care, TLC groups in our small groups. Our small groups were called tender love and care groups. Do you know that? TLC, tender love and care. Not, I'm going to screw you over. So our small groups were called tender love and care groups. Accountability to each other, supposed to be helping each other work through problems, are supposed to be there for each other, not only in biblical study, but outside the group in helping and watching out and protecting each other. That's part of it. Going into a small group is an accountability pledge, not only in the group, outside of the group. There's responsibilities, so choose wisely. That's what I told people, church responsibility. When you join a congregation or a church, you have an obligation inside and outside to that church. You don't walk out the door and your obligation's gone. Nope. You're part of the congregation. And so I tell people to shop around, truly, and figure out where you want it, because once you enter, you have an obligation. Now, if things turn out wrong, you need to explain it to the pastor, and you can back away because you made a wrong choice. Maybe the youth ministry or something else just doesn't work. But we had people from other churches in our small group. Our small group was multi-church. Not only people from NCPC, but from others. And NCPC supported our small group, even with people that were at other churches. They never went to service. They never donated to NCPC. Never. And I was proud of NCPC. And we had, I think, a little bit, maybe in Lakeview, but not really. But NCPC, we supported people not at our church that were part of small groups. They went to other churches and other services on Sunday, but went to our small group. And they never donated, like Mike, Simon's roommate. He didn't go to NCPC. He graduated from Stanford with an MBA and everything, went back to Silicon Valley, hangs out with the two Anns. One Ann works for Charles Schwab, the other works for Amgen. And I actually have a crush on both of them. But besides the point, and I like Mike. He's a white guy. It doesn't matter. Just telling you so you can sort them out. So, anyways, he never donated to our small group. And nor did he ever bring dinner or anything, but he was free to participate in the small group. Neither did Richie, and he didn't go to NCPC, and he brought Dominic and others, and he was free to come to our small group, and they didn't donate to the church. I donated and kept on increasing my donations. As I made more money, I inflated my donations to the church. Truly, every week it was going up. These pieces of shit. Conflict resolution, they're supposed to go to jail. Extreme tailgating. But again, that's just the neglect that you pay the police, and then they're like, oh, when things go down, we don't have much to do with crime. I see jaywalking, littering. I see people polluting the lake, throwing trash into the lake. I see there's so much shit they have to do. People leaving trash on the CTA or the RTA. Truly, leaving their trash behind. These are all littering. But the cops, they have unbelievable amounts of stuff to do. They need to go to building sites and pull their permits. If they see construction, That is the police officer. They can talk to the zoning people and that, the building inspectors, but they need to pull their permits. They did with my liquor permits and everything. They came in and pulled my permits. I had a stack. I gave it to go. I had a license board. I had all my permits. They need to stop and pull permits. Whether it's a construction truck going down the street. Truly, a crane operator. Do you have a license to operate the crane? I need to see your permit. These people don't understand. These people aren't licensed to do the job, and they're doing the job. We called 311, my brother, on Steven, because he had all these unlicensed stuff going on in our house with our gas pipes and everything else. And, oh yeah, if the house blows because people aren't licensed to work on gas lines, the insurance company doesn't pay. Oh, do you know that? So if you have unpermitted work and that work causes the house to catch fire or the gas lines blow or any of that, that's all on you, baby. If they can prove that you had the work done and it was illegal, that's all on you. And I tell you, when you buy homes, you pull the plans, the blueprints, and this is what realtors are, fucking pieces of shit. And I've been preaching this. I want the fucking blueprints. And I want to see any improvements. I want to see all the permits for the fucking improvements. I want to see it got signed off by cities' building inspectors. My brother, when I built the house with him, the building inspector from Park Ridge was in all the time, and he got in an argument about something with him once. But he was in there, and we had a sprinkler system in the house. A house that got a sprinkler system put in it in Park Ridge. The house I did with him had a sprinkler system. But the building inspector was there all the time, checking off on all the work. I want to see the fucking blueprints. That's why all these structures, all the blueprints for every house in the city of Chicago has it. They all had to be submitted. So they have the blueprints. I want to see the blueprints. I want to see what the fuck it was. And then I want to see all the permits that were pulled. And what renovations were done. And I'm going to compare the permits to the blueprints to what I actually see. And if I see the blueprints one way and I don't see a permit and I see that the structure's another way, we have a problem. But the city inspectors are supposed to go in, building inspectors, with the blueprints, and they can digitize them so they're GPS. Oh yeah. So they come up on their phone as they walk through the structure. It pulls up any room, they double tap on it, and it enlarges it. And they can have a full open phone like mine, so they can open up even wider, so they don't have to zoom in as much. And they can look and like, that house, that permit wasn't pulled. They should be going around every structure in the city of Chicago and saying, here's the blueprints. They would have found John Wayne Gacy's crawl space, which was illegal. My partner, David, he had a fight with the village over a shed in his backyard. Do you know that? No, you don't. And he's out. He had to get permits to put the shed in his backyard in a certain place. He had to jump through a shitload of hoops to be able to put a shed in his backyard. All kinds of inspections. My friend Jeff put a fish tank in his building. He had to have the building inspector sign off. He had to have the insurance company sign off. They had to inspect. Because if the fish tank breaks, water comes down all over the place. They wanted to know the glass. They wanted to inspect the construction. They needed to see all the improvements. My friend Pete Rossi, that's how I found out he was in the fish tank market. He built custom fish tanks. He sold one to Jeff. That's when I met him installing at Jeff's house, and I was over there for his construction. And no, I didn't help him, but I looked at his construction, and he had to jump through all the hoops and get everything. But when the people he sold his unit, and here's a Orthodox Jew who marries a Muslim. He married a Muslim female, and his dad was fine. They have to determine what's going to happen with the child. The children, they have to introduce. The child has to make a choice. But again, he had all the permits, and that goes with it when he sold the house. So they bought the house. They got the fish tank in it, or the condo. They got the fish tank, a beautiful fish tank. He did do a great job. He over-engineered it, but he's a very smart kid. And he did over-engineer it, making sure it wouldn't break. But smart kid, but he did have typical cheapness to him. And that is a stereotype that is true. It shouldn't be that way, but my Jewish friends that acknowledge it, like Lance and others, like he talks about greed and being cheap, they're not cheap people. They understand the stereotype negativities that were, and they don't want to be a stereotypical Jew. Other people are like, oh, no, it's not. You got to deal with your issues. So he didn't want to be a stereotypical Jew. Well, Jeff, I'm at a party, and we're at Tavern on Rush, and I'm with Dean, and I'm only there with Dean, and it's for this Extreme Network party. Yes. And I go into the VIP room, and now I don't drink. I'm just drinking Coke. Jeff, I drank in 2001 when he first met me. He met me in 2001. I met him way before I met Jen. Jeff and Nat, when they merged their company with Structured Technology, bought them, and they merged in. And my friend Adam, the lawyer, and that's how I ended up with business with Rob and that. But anyways, Jeff knew me, and I used to drink back then every so often. But I didn't go on their tabs. Even back then, I didn't go on their tabs. But I'm sitting there, and I'm in the VIP room, and he's there. He's like, he comes and looks at me, and he goes, "You're not drinking on my tab." I'm not drinking on your tab. I said, Dean works for Extreme Networks. This is an Extreme Networks party. I was invited by Dean. I don't have anything to do with your tab. This drink, I paid for it my fucking self. But I was invited here. I have every right to be here. He was an asshole. Then he gets out and he wants to tell me how smart he is with options. I'm doing iron condors and so on, and I'm trading this. And then, yeah, you're much smarter than I am. Okay, let's see how that works out. And then what did he do? Comes back to me later. I run into him. He's like, yeah, I'm not trading options anymore. How did it work for you? Not very well. I realized that if I stayed focused on the technology, what I do for a living, and write white papers and other things, and work on, improving my skill base and what I do for a living, than going out there and trying all this trading, I make more money with almost no risk. Truly, no risk. Sometimes the white paper, you don't know how well it's going to be taken, so there's risk with it. But focusing on what I do, almost no risk, zero risk. Options, wasting a lot of time, and I got nowhere. Oh, but I didn't bring it back up to him. I didn't say, oh, Jeff, but you told me you knew more about option trading than me. As this is my fucking profession. So I run into arrogance all the fucking time. And it disgusts me. These people telling me they know better. And I'm not saying I'm perfect in knowledge, but I've worked very, very, very hard, and everybody that knows me, I work very hard at being right. Meaning, not because I want to be right because I want power. I want to be right because I want you to get the right information. And that's why Costa trusted me. His friends fucked him, and he would only take my information. But that was a check and balance. He went to all these other people, and he's like, their information panned out not to be correct. So the only person he would trust was me. But it's trial and error. Dr. Hill, the same thing. I can give you numerous of my clients. They ran me through the ringers, and they found out the only one they could trust was me. That through thick or thin, like Jen said, she trusts me more than her mother, father, brother, or sister, or anyone. And I guarantee you it's more than her current husband. Is because I love her. I'm in it for the people. But I should be rewarded correctly. It doesn't mean you get to take advantage of me and suck everything out of me and belittle me and torture me and put me down. It doesn't give you that fucking right. That's why I get sick in the Old Testament of people thinking they have a right to do all this shit to God. I never believed I could fuck over God in any way, shape, or form. I wouldn't dare. They read the Bible and they think, oh, I can cheat God out of this and cheat God out of that. Read the Old Testament. It makes me sick. They constantly think they can constantly won over God. And it makes me sick to my stomach. But go through it with Moses, the same thing. Go through the stories of the Bible. God saves them, God does this, and then they think, well, we can just fuck you, God, and we're just going to screw you over now. Thanks for all your help. Thanks for solving our problems. Now we're going to betray you and screw you over. It makes me sick. So I never thought I could screw over God in any way, shape, or form. But the LGBTQ do. They think, that's okay. I don't need to stay with this desecration that no man can lay with no other man. And so on. And I don't have to follow this. I can just go against God. But Simon said it right. If you truly love God, you would just honor it because you love him. And that would outweigh your desire. And it's a test. But Simon had it right. And I told him right in small group is one of the most poignant, the number one point he's ever made. And he was right on. And I said, you're right on. That's absolutely correct. If you so love God, you'll just do the works. That's why it talks about working for God in the Bible. Don't work for man, work for God. But it tells you man can't cheat you. And that if man does, God will punish them. And there'll be a great reckoning. So again, when it comes to them going to God, there will be a reckoning. Sometimes here on earth with guardian angels or archangels, which do vengeance. But again, one way or another, it's a just universe, and they'll get what's coming to them. So you're supposed to work excellence. No matter what job I had, all those jobs, and they fucked me over. Again and again and again and again, and I never screwed them over. I gave them everything I had, from dirt bags to, truly, Mark used to tell me, threaten that he was going to fire me because I was taking his customers. Why would you take me out of financial service? I have every right to take all my competitors' customers. It's a competitive business. If I win, I win. They lose, they lose. But if you take me out of a business, and then you give to them, as Nardesh and everybody stood behind, that makes it unrighteous. I got a call from Florida from a guy who implemented just 1/5 of, not even close to 1/5, and he said he was doing gangbusters with my strategy in 2016. He was on my LinkedIn, and he said, hey, listen, what you're doing is dead on, and it is unbelievable for me, and I just want to say thanks. You gave me an even further idea how to better it, and I just wanted to tell you how much I appreciate it. Don't stop, keep it up, and thank you so much. But you take it out and then you give the other. That's not how it works. So that means people work for people they shouldn't be working for. That means there goes the stewardship and mentorship. But again, you're supposed to do this, and that's, you say, turn the other cheek or take the high road. That is taking the high road, that is turning, but you're not allowed to be abused in any way, shape, or form, and the Bible tells you that. They cannot abuse you. That's why the Bible says love the woman. Remember, Eve comes from Adam's rib, and it says love the woman like you would love your own body. And the point of Adam's rib is a point to tell you that you're supposed to love them as you love thyself. And it's the same way back. The Bible tells them to do the same to you. It's a two-way street. You can't abuse them, and they can't abuse you. And police are supposed to be the anti-abuse squad, right? Peacemakers, peacekeepers, keeping the fairness. Like all these here, can you be pandering on the street? Like somebody sitting out here from the Hopsmith on the street and, calling people in? Well, before they used to do it in a few places, and other places did the same thing. So either you do it, they can do it, or you don't do it and you allow the customer the choice. You could put up a board there like Lodge, 2-for-1 appetizers. The point is, bars didn't want to get sued anymore, so they wanted people to eat food, so it slowed down the consumption because they make so much off the liquor, but if they drink too much and don't eat enough, they get drunk too fast. So they cheapened the food so they didn't get DUIs and other things. Their customers didn't get overly intoxicated, because when you're eating the food, you're not drinking the beer at the same time. So it was a way to slow down consumption. So it was supposed to prevent. But when you get late night and you don't have any food, Walter Payton's place does it right. He owned, somebody told me he had over 100 places, but I don't know if it's true or not. But he used to have late night food. You open up and they had great food. We went over there for the late night buffet. Way before, 2 hours before closing, they would break out this immense buffet, and it was awesome. And it was to feed the people so they wouldn't walk out drunk. He wanted to slow down on consumption so people didn't want to. This is why I like Walter Payton. He didn't want people slamming down drinks. He wanted them to slow down the last couple hours. And so they walk out the door more temperate. So he did things right. Other places want you to slam it down before you go out the door. And I tell people, if you can't finish your drink, don't worry. I'll refund it to you. If you ordered it and we have closing time 30 minutes before close, and then you can't serve a drink 15 minutes before closing, but depends on the drink. And I tell people, if we served it to you and you can't finish it in the last 15, I'll just refund the money. Some people, if people left it, that's fine. I didn't refund the money. But if somebody wanted to, I'm not going to, and I need to finish this beer and you can't kick me out, I would tell them. I don't get into the fights. I'd be like, that's no problem. I'll instantly refund your beer, refund your shot. Truly. I'll take care of it. I wouldn't serve you a bottle the last 15 minutes. Or the last 30. You'd have to buy that bottle probably, I don't know if I even give it to you an hour. If you didn't have like 10 people with you in bottle service, I have to know how many people are drinking from that bottle. And if you don't have enough and you're going to slam that bottle, I'm not going to sell the bottle to you. This is why we had splits or give them a drinking package. Say, I can't sell you another bottle, but I understand this. I'll calculate out the savings and then I'll divide it over the drinks and I'll give you a discount on the drinks. So I can't give you the bottle, but I can give you independent drinks and I'll discount those drinks. How about that one? Truly, I don't want you going out slammed, throwing up, pissing on the neighbor's lawn. And another thing, at closing time, they should mention multiple times, 30 minutes before closing, bathrooms. Please remember to use the bathroom before you go. We want you to be respectful to the neighbors. And if you're in the line for the bathroom, I'll let people in the bathroom line stay after close. Truly. Finish up in the bathroom and then escort. Security's there and they escort them out. We did it at Excalibur as well in Baja. If you had to go to the bathroom, we let you back in after the doors were closed, but only one person at a time. Because we're, and the security would escort you and wait for you to come out, go into the washroom, come out of the washroom. Truly. And we only allowed one in. So if we had 3 or 4 people at the door, you're going to have to wait. Who needs it to use it most urgent? And we had a pecking order. And be truthful, because we don't want you pissing in your pants or shit. In your pants, we didn't use shit. We don't want you pooping or peeing on yourself. So be honest. Can you hold it for a little bit? Who needs it the most? And then when they go down, the security will let them go to the bathroom. They'll bring them back up, and then they'll take you down, and you can go to the bathroom too. We didn't leave them at the door. If they had to go to the bathroom, we let them in one at a time, and the security person would guide them down, wait for them, bring them back up and out, and then the next person. We didn't allow more than one person at a time. I didn't care if we had multiple doors and we had upstairs bathrooms and everything. Nope, just one at a time. But the DJ should remind people 30 minutes, 15 minutes, 5 minutes before closing. Truly, while you're finishing up, don't forget to go to the bathroom before you leave. So again, you have to think of these things. And so again, this is supposed to be becoming a better world. And these shitbags, I don't understand what's going on. And then when the city has all this, why do you think you get a ghetto? And I pulled this article from Philadelphia, which was written by a black reporter, and it was written about gangs. And he did this study on these gangs in Philadelphia, a black reporter. And he wasn't afraid to call them out. And he named them in the article, these gang leaders. And what he did a study, he found out that the gang leaders were suppressing education in the black community. Why? Because if the people got educated, he pointed out, if they got educated, then they can find a legitimate job to earn money, and they didn't need what the gang had to offer, the illegitimate revenue. So the gangs were intentionally, like the cartels, they intentionally suppress you. They don't want you to go to college and get an education. They don't want you to be able to provide for yourself. It's the same thing the government does, enslave you. Why do you think we offer the Pell Grant and the MAP Grant and the Stanford loans and all that? Truly, why do you think colleges offer merit scholarships and athletic scholarships? It's all about being able to afford the education. Why do you think the military offers the GI Bill? I'm all for military benefits in that, the GI Bill in that, because they know if the soldiers get smarter, they get better. They are more able to handle situations, so they offer the GI Bill. So I'm all for that. A government is an employer. I'm in for employee benefits. I'm not for freeloaders. You as a welfare recipient aren't a government employee. You're supposed to do your thing, financial literacy. What was the NAACP afraid of? They were afraid that what? That black people, the United Negro College Fund should be part of the NAACP. They're afraid that black people wouldn't get proper educations, and that people that were in the financial planning, insurance industry and that couldn't make money because their clients didn't make enough money. And they were afraid of that, and they were for commissions. They were for A shares and B shares and C shares. And Barack Obama went against the NAACP. I put this out there. But they understand that they're people that need to service other people. Black financial advisors say servicing black people, or a white person or Asian, who's ever servicing them. The NAACP, because these are educated individuals, they understand they got to make a living. They can't service them for free. So they said, we are for A share, B share, and C shares. They need the front end load, because in a low commission sales, like a term life, it's front end loaded. An annuity, it's front end loaded. So what do they do? Piece of old shit shaking his leg. But what do? They front end load it, and then they put a back end surrender, but not on term life. There's no back end. On annuities, you're protected unless that person dies. The back end surrender protects you, so you get all the front end load, and you don't have to worry about a recapture. But with life insurance, term life and that, if they terminate within 12 months, you get chargebacks. It's all front-end loaded to make it worth selling the life insurance. You know that? It makes it worth it for you to sell. But health insurance doesn't do that. They don't front-end load. But health insurance, it's better to get not $20 a month, but to get $120 right up front when you sell the health policy. But then that means they'd have to put a load on it, and if you terminate it early, they would have to charge you a penalty. When they don't, then you get the $20 or $12 a month, which isn't shit. But insurance companies understand this. But again, it works the same way as in health insurance, as in term life insurance and that. And even cash value, it's all front-end loaded, because that's why you don't get much cash value in the first years, because the agent needs to make their money. They need to get paid for the work they did, so you get very minimal cash value in the first year. You get some, more in the second, more in the third, but it's a built-in surrender charge. And so it allows the life insurance agent, when they're selling these policies that aren't worth that much, at least they get a big as possible check, trying to give them as much money right away for their time. Then they give them a servicing fee, a trail. And the trail is small. It's a percentage. In whole life, it's 10%. But the premiums are high. That's why it is so much. 10% on a $100 policy is $10, and you get that 10% over a year. So you get $1 per month in servicing fees. Not much. The whole life, the reason you get, because the premiums are really high. But they get a lot more cash value and a lot of other benefits that justify higher premiums. It's a guaranteed payout, so you get more guarantees and so on. But the whole point is, the NAACP understood this, and Obama went against them. He went against the leadership of the NAACP. So, again, they need to make their money. And they understand this, and so should the client. They need to get paid. And this is the problem with real estate as well. Everybody looks at the commission, and everybody is, well, do you know they're working for free up until the time they sell the resident? And then they don't see all the other ones that are still sitting that you're not getting paid for, that you're paying in with your time and money and labor and everything, waiting for the sale. And they think, oh, wow, you got this big commission. But that's all back pay. The reason that Zillow and all that, not Zillow, but the other company, can pay their people and they charge less in the commissions and they pay their people is because of the contract they get into, and they have the showings in that, but they have economies of scale, so they have houses closing all the time. Unlike these small real estate offices, they don't have enough closings per month to be able to give them salary. So, to be able to pay salary, you need economies of scale. You need enough brokers closing properties per month to be able to float. And sometimes you need a line of credit because there's not enough, and you have to borrow from the line, and it floats the payroll. But you have to have so much. And so Pete, he had so much he had to sell per month to get his salary. And if not, if he was below, then he owed the company. And he did sometimes dip below, and then he increased his sale volume, he'd work even harder, so he could pay his salary. You got to cover your salary. And so what happens is Claudia works for the company, and they do it because they have scale. They're national, not just local. And so they can pay their people, their realtors, a salary because they have properties closing all over the place. And to make sure they get enough volume, they lower their commissions. So they lower their commissions to make sure they get enough people listing with them. And then in turn, they get enough volume closing. And because of how they do it, they're very efficient. They don't need a lot of capital for their CapEx, so they can pay their employees a salary. So Claudia makes a salary with Redfin. Yeah, that's it. So, again, but they worked out the model. Smart guys that opened it up, that knew some things you can't do local that you have to launch nationally right away. Because you need scale, so you're going to hit every market a small little bit in each market. And why does that work? Because you're not going in big into any market, so you're not a threat to anyone initially. You're taking a little bite here, a little bite here, a little bite. That's what Uber should have done, rolled out in all 50 states from day one. And you're a small player, but on a national basis, you're a big player, and you could pay your Uber drivers salaries and benefits. And that's what they should be doing, like Redfin, and they should use the same model for Uber and Lyft drivers. And they can make them salary plus bonuses plus benefits and everything else. And they do it through scale. And they get professional drivers. No more mom and pop and so on, that people are these ragtag, that you actually have to go through a formal interviewing and you have to produce, because in turn, if I'm taking the risk out of your income, I have to take the risk out of you. Do you know that? If I'm not taking the risk out of your income, then I can take more risk with you. And so when you get higher salary, this is why entry-level positions don't pay much, because they assume more risk. But when you're proven, like a Michael Jordan, if he went to another team, LeBron James had better, he's a proven talent. Not much risk. You know he's going to produce at this level, and he's not injury prone. So you can buy into a LeBron James for a lot more money. Why? Because less risk. And you can give LeBron James more guarantees because he's not a drunk, he's not a drug addict, he's not an adulteress, he's not doing risky things. Truly, LeBron doesn't do, he doesn't go out there and, like Jason Williams, ride motorcycles recklessly. LeBron James doesn't race sports cars. Because if they do, then you can't pay them. Then you have to have an incentive-loaded contract. Incentive-loaded. You can still take them, and you're like, that's fine. If you stay injury-free, you get all the money. But if you're an injury-prone athlete, I pay you less money. Why? I want to incentivize you to stay injury-free. There's too much risk with you of getting injured. So if you're an injury, I can give you good money based on statistics that when you play, you produce. But also, I'm incentivizing it. It's incentive-driven. You got to play the games, and it's time on floor, and that equals points and so on. And it's a very incentive-laden contract because I put the risk back on you. And you got to manage yourself better and figure out how to overcome your physical challenges. Because if you're injury prone, I'll work with you, but you got to figure out with me how to overcome those challenges. And if you overcome and we work together as a team, then you get your incentives. But this is what happens with Uber and that. Once you start giving them salary and that, you've de-risked them. I explain this to bartenders and that. You want me to take you off of tips and that, and you want me to give you more income, I need to screen you harder and demand greater performance. I need to de-risk. I need to know you're a proven asset and you're going to deliver day in and day out. And if you can't, then I have to do it incentive laden. You might show up today, might not tomorrow. That's what they should have done with Charlie Sheen in 2.5 Men. They shouldn't have given him. He ended up firing him. I would have motivated him by what? Make it incentive laden. You cancel on a rehearsal. You cancel on a shoot. I demote your money. I take away 50% of your pay for the next one. So when you show up the next time, I get it for 50% less. And why? I got to cover and pay the staff and everything I had to send home. I have all this sunk costs I got to cover. So they could have changed Charlie Sheen's actions by putting the fire under him. But they didn't. And I understand they don't understand this stuff, and they don't. But I would have structured a contract that it would have been in his best interest to clean his shit up. Do you know Charlie Sheen, before 2.5 Men, did go straight? He cleaned up and he was sober and all that for a period of time. And then he went back. But I would have incentivized it correctly. They didn't. They fucked up. So I understand them firing him, but the show went to shit. Austin Kutcher is nowhere near Charlie. Charlie was the right cast with him. Those two, it's a total different. Now, it has a market, but I'm not the market. I don't like it. That 70s show I like, where he pays a knucklehead. He played a good knucklehead. And, you know, I like the show. But now he's a sophisticated billionaire and everything else. I don't see that as him. He was a Calvin Klein model and everything. He went to Iowa, but he was never known for his high intelligence, to be quite honest. Maybe he's smarter than I think. But I think they cast him pretty right. He's more looks than intelligence. Where they get him in the role in 2.5 Men, they're giving him more intelligence and less to his looks. He would be more of a womanizer in that way, getting him by his looks, and not an eccentric billionaire who had this. They didn't write that right. That's not who he is. But whatever. I think that's why that 70s show did so well, and that's why 2.5 Men eventually went off the air, because, no, it didn't work. So, again, you have to understand these things, and you can do these things, but you have to understand how to do them correctly. And if you don't, then, okay, well, that's on you. Don't blame me, and if you blame God, I hope you fucking burn.